This has been a good convention for Southeastern Seminary. It hasn't been as good of a convention for Southern Baptist. Can I talk for a moment to the family? Yesterday was not our finest hour. We fumbled the ball. We lost ground. And there's lots of blame that we could throw at lots of people, but that would not do any good at all, because in a real sense, we all deserve and we all bear some of the blame. Al Mohler is right when he said, and there's a book that came out by the title, he said in a meeting with Baptist 21 yesterday, Southern Baptists have, and I really believe until Jesus comes again, will always bear on some level the stain of the sin of racism. It's in our history. It's in our roots. It is our past. Now, I think we have taken wonderful steps in recent years to try to eradicate that, especially going back to 1995, when on our 150th anniversary, we publicly apologized for the sin of racism and the sins of bigotry, and we asked in particular our African American brothers and sisters to forgive us for the ways that we had sinned against them. And my experience has been they were very kind and very receptive in extending their forgiveness. And yet at the same time, they had every right to say, and they do say, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do something about it. Well, we're going to have a chance at least today to say something about it, and we need to speak this afternoon at 2:45 with a crystal clear clarion call that we stand steadfastly against any form and every form of racism, bigotry, and racial supremacy, no matter where that may come from and no matter who may express it. And if we don't, we absolutely have no reason to expect the blessing of God upon our convention of churches, and indeed, we invite His just judgment against us. Now, folks, I've come to understand in recent years that it's one thing to be an overt racist, but it's another thing to sometimes do racist things unknowingly. And the fact of the matter is, let's just be honest again, many of us, starting with Danny Akin, we have blind spots. We don't always see things clearly. I have not walked in the skin of a black man. And so for me to ever say something like, well, I understand their situation, I understand the black thing, no, I don't. And neither do you. But I can begin to understand better, if I can just say it in a Danny Akin way, if I'll just learn to shut up and listen. And listen with a sympathetic, empathetic ear. And again, I've come to understand that my African American brothers and sisters are more than willing to help me if I'm willing to be helped. And so if you just check social media, even a moment ago, before I got up here, one of my sons sent me an article that was in the Dallas Morning News this morning, and basically the article said, Southern Baptists blew it again. Southern Baptists blew it again. And you say, well, that's not fair. It doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. It is the perception that a cynical, skeptical, watching world has of us. Now, we can either say it's not fair, or we can put on our big boy pants and big girl pants and do something about it. I'd prefer the latter course than the former. And so we're going to have a chance this afternoon to speak to the issue of white supremacy racism, and I think we will speak strongly and powerfully. And at the same time, as I mentioned in my report, one thing to say something, one thing to do something. I cannot again express how grateful I am that God in His marvelous providence brought Walter Strickland to Southeastern Seminary to assist us in this particular area of kingdom diversity. I did not realize, because again, I sometimes am tone deaf, but I did not realize just how white our campus was until we began to look at it very carefully. But as I mentioned this morning, though we had a white student body count back in 2011 that was at a non-white student body count in 2011 of 8.3%. Today it is at 18% and will pass 20% in this coming year. I'm grateful for that. I'm not happy that I'm not satisfied with where we are, but I'm very thrilled at where we're headed and where I believe by God's grace we're going to go. And again, one of the things that I would point out is God, because of the heart and spirit of our campus, is sending us more African Americans. He is sending us more Hispanics. He is sending us more Asians. And our prayer is that He will just keep sending them and sending them and sending them so that Southeastern Seminary looks like, and Southeastern Seminary helps equip churches on the earth to look like the church in heaven. I love to remind our students there are no segregated communities in heaven, and there are no segregated worship services either. So we're going to keep working and working and working and working. And by God's grace, we're going to do something that will honor our Lord and that will cause Him indeed to want to pour out His blessings on who we are and what we're doing, because our heartbeat is one with His.